The way this movie came about was that I was in San Francisco and I was scouting locations for a movie that ironically I never wound up making. But when I was down at Fisherman's Wharf, I saw a sign and it said, World War II submarine tours, $2. And my eyebrows went up and I thought, that's really neat. I've always wanted to go aboard a submarine. Months later, the project I was working on had stalled out. I had never gotten a chance to go aboard that submarine, and I said to myself, I want to write a movie about something that would really interest me. And that World War II submarine just popped in my head, and I said, I got to go back there and see that. So I went back to San Francisco, and I went aboard the submarine, and I was just hooked. And I spent the whole day just standing on this submarine, trying to soak in its ambiance and trying to understand the courage of the young men who went out to sea in these things.
For years, Dino's always wanted to remake a few films that he did about World War I and World War II, and it was never the right timing. But we always loved that time period of filmmaking because war pictures are ever so emotional, dramatic, and in the face of tragedy always. So I mean, to find a good script nowadays is very difficult. To find a good story, it was, we were searching to pull from that era.
In all my life, in all my career, in the last 50 years in making movie, I always like to make epic movie. Waterloo, War and Peace, Barabba, the Bible, many, many pictures. And during the shooting of Breakdown with Jonathan Mostow, I said to John, I want to do World War II movie. I have a different story in my mind, different kind of a movie. But John said to me, Dino, if you want to do World War II story, I have a picture about submarine. I give the first draft to read. I read this first draft and I love it.
Because fortunately of the success of Breakdown, I was given the opportunity to kind of do a bigger movie next, and I presented the script and everyone said, okay, we'll back that. And then I really went to work and I got very serious about the technical details. I went out and surrounded myself with World War II submariners. I did as much research as I'd done. I went and did even more research, and my goal was really to make an old-fashioned World War II submarine movie. I remember, sometimes late at night as a kid and even as an adult, flipping around on TV and seeing a great old movie like Run Silent, Run Deep or Destination Tokyo. And I wanted to make a movie that was in that vein and that could recall some of those feelings that I had when I first watched those pictures. So when you say to me that it's an old-fashioned kind of filmmaking, that's the best compliment you can pay to me, because to me the story is the star of this movie. The idea of doing a World War II movie, 7 or 8 years ago, that was a very uncommercial idea. So I said, I'm writing a World War II movie set in the water, and nobody ever heard of me. What am I doing? I'm wasting my time. And yet, I was so fascinated by the subject matter that I just felt compelled to keep writing. And for me, the coming up with the story, that was fun, and working at all the action beats, that was fun. But for me, the big challenge was I couldn't get my sort of hands around the idea of who are these people that had the courage to go do this thing? I didn't understand it.
I'm sorry your liberty's been cut short, but our schedule has changed. We have 2 hours to get stowed for sea and set the maneuvering watch. Sir Larson, have your torpedo and load the tubes with their 4 best fish.
These submariners were young, and people see this movie and they may think, oh gee, it's sort of a Hollywood movie, they cast everybody young to make it, appealing to the young audience. Well, the fact is, these guys were young. The average sailor was a teenager. Captains were rarely over 35. In fact, the average age for captains was about 30-ish or so, and in fact, as the war went on and there was attrition and more boats being built, there were captains who were as young as 26 years old. The other officers were often early, mid-20s. So this was a young bunch of people.
I think that's specific of why hopefully women will like this film as well. You do care about these characters. I think some of them look so young, they may even look at it as like, that's my boys. And you don't have to be, a 30-year-old woman to see this and think that some of these kids on here, like Thomas Curie and Will Estes, could be their boys.
I want the audience to really understand the submarining that went on in World War II, because it was a very specific kind of activity. And in that sense, everything in this movie is 100% authentic about the submarining. We had retired World War II submariners on the set at all times to make sure that if somebody pushed a button, that was the button that was pushed. If a command was given, that was the command that was given. And consequently, I hope it's one of the more authentic submarine movies that's actually ever been made.
Tank! Tank! I need speed!
Working with Admiral Hannafin, who was our technical advisor, helped so much, because there were so many little specific technical things you had to know in order to do this. And I think that added so much to how I worked the character.
Pass it 15 meters. Recommend shutting main vents. Make it so. Wind's getting the sound room lit enough held out there. Yes, sir.
I didn't really have any other experience of subs, obviously, other than what I've seen on CNN and Discovery and this, that, and the other. So it was very important for me to prepare as an actor for this role, to know what this dial was and what this meant, and if this didn't happen, what kind of danger we might be in. And to basically know the inner workings of the sub is so important for everyone.
But we really did our homework. You know, we had to go to submarine school. We had to learn how these things work. We had to watch the documentaries and read the books and know what the plainsman does to a helmsman does.
Right full rudder steady on 010. Aye, sir. Right full rudder steady on course 010, sir. Tank starboard back full rapid. Get back there. Starboard back full. Aye, sir.
It was about action, you know, and dexterity and movement and execution. And that's when the stuff really works. When you see, you know, an order being given, an order being taken, an action being boom, simultaneous actions happen at the same time, and the thought being processed. Give me the 1MC, going left, back, you know, that is the nice dexterity that you see these. It happens, man. When you're in an extreme situation, it can either be complete chaos, or if you're good at what you do, it is so on the money and works so well, and everyone's so hyper aware and does their job so well that it works like perfection.
1 2 away, lining up 2, 3 and 4. 3 and 4, fire!
The big enemy at sea when you're in a submarine, it isn't the enemy, it's water. It's the ocean, it's the sea. And if one person screws up, everybody dies. That's why with submarines, you know, either everybody comes back or nobody comes back. But there's very few cases where, you know, they come back with half the people. So everybody is interdependent on everybody else. It's also one of the reasons that everybody in a submarine is trained to do every job.
You have to understand that to work on a submarine is all volunteer, right? And back in those days, blacks and Filipinos were only allowed to do service-oriented positions. You know, cleaning latrines, serving food, that kind of cooks, that kind of stuff. So I think this was a way, volunteering to work on a submarine was a way for Eddie to get training. Because everybody on the submarine has to know how to do everything on the sub.
Helm come right 10 degrees. Helm coming right 10 degrees, aye, sir. Watch your bow planes.
Aye, sir. Watching my bow planes.
Tank, start the diesel. All ahead full.
Nobody wants somebody in a submarine who doesn't want to be there, because everybody's lives depend on everybody else's. One person in a submarine who screws up can literally sink the boat. And it really gets back to my whole challenge writing this movie, which was, who had the courage to do these things? What superhuman courage or qualities do these people possess to have the fortitude to go withstand this stuff? And what I learned was that people who did this, they were ordinary people like you and me, but they were doing extraordinary things because the extraordinary times of the day called upon them to do it. And that's really, ultimately, that's the story of the World War II submarine experience.
Control! Anti-torpedo tube ready in all respects! Hold us right there, Rabbit. Hold us steady right here. Steady on bearing, 80 degrees, sir. Fire! Take fire right now, we die!
The Battle of the Atlantic was an extraordinary time. It was, very few people realize this, but in the first part of 1942, really from the very end of January through to basically late in the summer, we were getting our butts kicked right off the eastern seaboard of the United States. The government kept it pretty quiet, and anecdotally, people knew that U-boats, which are the German submarines, were coming very close to shore, but people didn't realize how much of a toll they were taking. And what people don't even know to this day is that a quarter of all the ships sunk in the Battle of the Atlantic were sunk right off the eastern seaboard of the United States.
The Germans were about to take over the world, and it would have ruined American life the way they knew it. So it was a very serious thing to serve your country and to fight for the things that we had in America.
Well, we felt a responsibility as actors making this movie. It was an honor to play these characters, but also, we wanted to get it right. We wanted to, because the movie, even though it's a work of fiction, it symbolizes and represents what these guys went through.
We weren't playing specific people that had lived, but we were playing characters that had survived in that time and had acted and done the jobs that we did in that time. And you do feel a responsibility to portray them correctly because they were heroes.
It's a real sort of heroism. It's not flag-waving heroism, although there's patriotism and all those elements of fighting for a good cause. But it's really about people in really dire circumstances, overcoming those circumstances, and the psychological effect that has on them and how they overcome that.
If the situations are extreme enough, if you go just pretty much tell it flat of how it would have happened, that's enough. You don't need to over-dramatize too much. And Jonathan didn't do that as well, so it's very nice that he just told the story the real way. And how much, like I said, when the stakes are life and death, can you be too intense? No. Can you be too scared? No. It's all those stakes give you the leverage and the license and the clarification, I know, for me as an actor, and I think it works for everybody in that way.
This movie in no way is a morality tale. It is designed to be an experience, and from having the experience, I hope people walk away and they go, wow, that was cool, that was an amazing experience, but then they think, wow, what would it take to get me to do that? Under what circumstances would I or my friends be able to do that? And would I be able to do it? For myself, I don't know. I really don't know. I'd like to think that I would, but that's the thing about history. It's only those people in those moments will ever really know. But I must say, when you meet those people, the generation of men and women that fought World War II and won World War II for the free world, that generation, they built our country. They built a lot of other countries too.